Hi there, welcome to Women with Good Chat. I'm here with my buddy Pam, and we haven't seen each other in a while.
No, it's been quite a while. We were trying to remember when I arrived today how long it's been,
how
and neither
long
of us
it's been.
could bring even up a date. So that tells you how long it's been.
But I'm super excited about taping this episode today because we're going to talk about this amazing, I'm going to call it a little journey that Pam took. And she did the marked pilgrimage route in Midland, and it has a very important significance to her. And why don't you tell us about it, Pam, rather than me telling you about it? Let's hear it from Pam.
Sure, why don't we start? Well, I have always been interested in doing a pilgrimage. Ever since I first heard about the Camino that most people will be familiar from, which starts in France, goes to Santiago de Compostela in Spain, which is a traditional medieval pilgrimage route, I've always thought, my God, what a neat idea to do that. So, but as life has unfolded, I have not had a chance to do that. But it's always been something I've wanted to do.
Right.
Combine that with a girlfriend of mine who also was very interested in this idea of pilgrimage, a Camino, and really taking a very set period of time out of your life and thinking about spiritual matters. Not necessarily, the traditional Christian pilgrimage, which it was in the beginning, but just a real set time to say, our spiritual issues matter, our spiritual thoughts matter, and we are going to designate a period of time to devote to that. And this is how we're going to do it, by being on a journey with some hardships, with a physical aspect to it, and hopefully, come to some conclusions, or at least have some time to explore those issues away from the everyday.
Yeah, and I love this idea. So it's cleansing in many ways. So you're coming to terms with things to a degree, maybe having a little bit of closure. You're doing something super healthy, which is amazing for the mind, body, and spirit.
Absolutely.
And a tribute to your longtime beautiful friend.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So so tell us more about
Yeah. So this, as I say, my girlfriend, who unfortunately passed away this last year, never got to do the kind of pilgrimage route that we had always talked about wanting to do together. And with her passing, along with, a tremendous amount of sadness on a million fronts, this was one thing that stuck with me. We had wanted to do this together. We had had a very definite purpose and a kind of a specific spiritual journey we wanted to do together with this. And we just ran out of time. And so faced with that, I kind of faced the decision of, do I just forget about that? Is that something I'm not going to do with her? Or is it something I'm going to do on my own, and I'll do it for her and with her? And that's what I decided. So that's what I did in early October. I took 5 days out to do the pilgrimage by myself. And the route I did, which was from Orillia, Ontario, into the Martyrs Shrine in Midland, Ontario. If you look online, it says it's 50 kilometers. I think it was way more than that. I'm going to say it was about 70. It certainly felt like that. Anyway, so I got it done actually in 4.5 days. And it was a really, really wonderful experience.
And you sort of carved it up, because I know when you first told me about this, I'm like, are you camping? Like, how does this work? So what was the structure?
So I think, and the reason, it's not really interesting, the structure, but I think what's interesting about the structuring of it, and this gets back to a friend of ours who had done the real Camino a few months ago out of the blue.
Yes.
Just like, so I drew Camino off, I went. It really speaks to me about the maturity of our age, which is we have the maturity to say, I can't do this in exactly the way I once thought I was going to. I can't do this exactly how it looks in somebody else's plans or my plans or whatever, but I can still get it done. Okay, so that's why, and what I decided to do, because the thing with walking a route like this, and this route doesn't have accommodation along the way, and I was trying to walk between 15 and 20 kilometers a day, is somehow I had to get from where I started to where I ended. Basically, I just took cabs. I would drive to the location I was finishing at, park my car, call the cab, they would take me back to where I wanted to start, and I'd walk to my car each day.
So it's brilliant.
It is. I'm proud of that strategy because that strategy allowed me to do it. I wasn't dependent on other people. I could have all the peace of mind time I needed. And if it didn't work, I just called the cab to grab me, right? So all of those things were, how do I get this done? How do I do this in a reasonable way that fits into my lifestyle, but I still end up with, you know, achieving what I wanted to, honoring her memory by doing this, and also having some of that experience of being alone, with the very express purpose of thinking of her, thinking of us and our friendship, but also thinking about, you know, some bigger spiritual matters. So yeah.
No, I think that's wonderful. And I hope you achieved the goals. That
You know, I
wanted to
really
achieve.
did. I really did. I think, ironically, the most, I think, important part of it was I actually set aside the time in my life to do nothing but this, right? So how often do you have 5 days when what you're doing, getting up, feeding yourself, and then walking with no expectation as to the time you're going to finish? No expectation of anything else you have to do that day, right? None of the other stuff that usually clouds your time. This is what you were doing. And as you're walking, giving yourself permission to, and I shouldn't even say giving myself permission, because I tried to go in with some strong intentions of thinking about her, thinking about our relationship, as I said, and also thinking about the fact, as we've talked about, that at this point in our life, unfortunately, we are suffering these kinds of losses, right? We're not only suffering losses of our parents, a lot of us are because of our age, some of us siblings, but also even some of our contemporaries, which is a really different kind of loss.
Yeah, very difficult, very tricky.
Yeah.
For sure. So I have some questions.
Yes, absolutely.
So just from sort of the general mechanics, so you would drive to your next point in the route.
Yep.
And you said that the trail is well marked.
The trail was well marked. Yes, absolutely.
And you felt safe.
Absolutely. I didn't have a minute when I wasn't feeling safe. Yeah.
And then when you're calling a cab, because I'm thinking out there, are there cabs available? But that wasn't an issue?
So I chose to drive to my end point.
Right.
And then call the cab to bring me back to where I started. So the cabs where I were wasn't an issue, right? I mean, it wasn't, you're not out in the middle of nowhere. This route was very safe, yes. I didn't. But then again, that's a bit of a comfort level because I walk and cycle up near here quite a bit. It doesn't bother me going half an hour, 45 minutes without seeing anybody on a wooded route. Now they're not dense woods by any means. This is an old rail trail you're walking on. Okay. So sometimes there's clouds or something that doesn't bother me. But it might bother some people. So doing this on your own has that to it. I think if you did it with a friend, there's certainly be absolutely no issues. But that was, yes. So that was what it involved. It just involved making sure there's a cab company who's willing to pick you up and take you to where you're going. So there is, if you're doing it, in a place that's not designed necessarily for overnighting, you've got to do a bit of planning that way. But that's what I chose to do, and it worked. Yeah.
Well, I think that's great. And as soon as we're up and running in terms of posting some links and stuff, I'd love to be able to post kind of what your process was. Yeah. Because I think this type of thing is very useful. I think if I was interested in doing something like this, which I am, knowing that you're going, okay, I'm going to do it this way, and it worked out really well.
Yes,
I think people would love to know more about that, and potentially.
And I actually did do a video diary. I was pretty good about it.
Oh,
so I did, and I gave some hints along the trail. That was a much less. That was a very mechanical thing. I'm starting here. This is this. You know, whatever. It's hot on this part of the trail. That sort of thing. So that's much more. And your feet. I got blisters. So when you watch, if you go on YouTube or wherever and you start reading about people doing the real Camino, it is funny how much they talk about their feet.
Really?
Yeah. Because walking that distance day over day, day after day, really puts a lot of impact on your feet, and you get blisters and you do this and this. And if you don't care for your feet properly, that can be an issue. So I always thought that was very funny. I'm watching this, I'm like, guys, like, this is a huge spiritual journey. Yeah. Why am I hearing about your blisters? Because if you get a blister, it's not very spiritual anymore.
It's reality.
It's just reality.
So
that's kind of funny. It's very grounding.
again, useful information.
Useful information.
Don't walk in pumps. I don't know. Okay, so how many hours, whatever, were you doing per day, do you think?
So I was doing about 3 to 4 hours a day, which frankly for me was enough, right?
Well, I mean, that's quite long.
Yeah, and this is another thing I think I should address is that I had really hoped to go into this walk in much better shape than I was, right? I had planned this walk and kind of got the route together back in May, did it in October, and I got all these plans to, okay, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, I'm getting up, I'm going to be walking, I'm going to be toughening, I'm going to have the right shoes and everything. Life intervenes. My summer was chaotic with the amount of company we had.
Yeah.
I went off both all my fitness goals and all my other goals, right? And then I came to kind of mid-September and I had to make this decision. Am I going to do it? Okay, This was not what I had planned. I haven't been doing my walking. I hadn't been keeping up my physio, so my joints were stiffer. But I decided again, no, I'm going to do it, right? I'm going to try. Can't get done the 20 kilometers today I want. I'll try 16 and rejig. Or if I only get part way and I have to cab part of it, whatever. But I also saw that, frankly, as a very mature decision. Okay,
I just want to touch on, I want to interrupt you here for a second because I love this, Pam. Because I think a lot of people will set incredibly lofty goals and then will never do something, whether it's going to the gym or doing this incredible journey that you did, because the expectations are way too high. So I think if you can set expectations and meet most of it, and sometimes meet all of it, I think that's amazing because you're still doing it.
You're still doing it, right? And as I say, at one point in my life, I wouldn't have done that. I remember back in my life when I was running more, and I'm not a good runner, I'd have a 10K planned and it'd be like, I got to do this and I got to, and if I would not get my training regime, I wouldn't run it, right? Right now, so I remember those days, okay, I didn't get it done in this interview, but shit always intervenes, right? At our age, there's no way stuff's not going to intervene. So that was the decision, and it went very, very well. I actually felt fine. I took it easy. It wasn't any of that. So that was a good lesson. I think it's also a lesson in that being, when you've thought you're going to do that, and there's the other sorts of putting time aside, getting the arrangements, that's not always easy to reproduce.
Yeah.
So if you've got that in place, I would equivalent, you've got a trip plan, something happens, do you go ahead with it subpar or do you wait?
Right.
I think, personally, I feel like I'm at the age now where I'm not waiting. I don't know when that's going to happen again. I don't know when this would have lined up again. Right? And I also really needed it because the journey has certainly put a lot of the issues that were troubling me about the loss of my friend, at least it's quieted a lot of those thoughts a lot.
Well, that's good. And this is the next thing I wanted to touch on with you in terms of your own spirituality and how that manifests for you.
Yeah.
And also coming to terms with your friend's loss. I mean, not that we ever really come to terms with it.
Yeah.
But how did that play out for you as you went through this day by day?
Well, I think first thing is I did not use my phone at all. So I didn't have on anything I was listening to. I didn't have on music. I totally disconnected from all of that.
You were in the moment.
Was in the moment. Now, that having said that, every now and like 2 or 3 times I'd stop and do a video as to where I was. But as far as, and I'm a person who usually has a lot of distraction going on. I'm driving in my car, I got an audiobook on. I'm walking, I got a podcast on. So that quiet had a lot to do with it. The other thing was, I thought about this as a walking meditation in a sense. So, if you've done some meditation, oftentimes with meditation, your thoughts wander from where they're supposed to be and you kind of kindly bring them back to where you're supposed to be. I was practicing that as I went. So many times when I was walking and I'd realize 20, 25 minutes had gone by, I'd be thinking about other things. I would conscientiously try to bring my thoughts back to this. So I think, to be honest, all of this walk was taken up with thinking about my friend.
Amazing.
And us and our friendship. And to the extent of spiritual aspect for me came into it, it was thinking about, kind of what do then I want to do, right? Because when you have someone your age, a good friend, pass suddenly, it just whacks you across the side of the head about what are you doing with today? What is it you want to do? And I knew many of her goals, right? I knew many of the things she still wanted to do, this walk being one of them, tens of other things that she had also said, I want to do this and I want to go here and I'm still hoping to do this. So that was, to the extent I was thinking about me, it was really having to ask myself those questions. What is it you want to do? How are you going to get that done?
Yeah.
What's the priorities, right? Are you spending the time with the people you want, right? So that was how it struck me. And I think that's how loss has been striking me more as I've aged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that makes a lot of sense. As you know, I lost my mom a few years ago, and 3 years ago now. And I still kind of go into a bit of a hole every now and again, thinking about the loss aspect and not focusing on what I really need to focus on was how amazing it was, how amazing her life was, her contribution to me, and how she impacted everybody. And I find when I get out of my hole and I think about all those things and our relationship, it really brings me out, and it's empowering, and it's beautiful in its own way.
So setting aside a time to do that, I think that's really what I did. I set aside kind of 4.5 days to do that, right? And it allowed me the space. I wasn't thinking about other things. I wasn't being drawn into other things. It allowed me the space to do that.
Yeah.
And, I read a lot of Victorian mystery novels. Bit of an escape. Anyway, one thing that's always struck me about that is that, in Victorian times when they lost someone close to them, they put aside a year of mourning, right? There was this recognition that the loss of someone important requires a certain amount of changing what we do every day, right? Taking time to deal with it, process it, address it, right? We so much don't do that anymore. As a matter of fact, we are encouraged, oh my God, someone's died, get on with it, do this, distract yourself. Don't focus on that. People don't want to hear about it, right? They don't want to, right? So this was really also giving myself the permission to say, 4 days, thinking about you, thinking about our relationship, all of that. And what I'm going to say is, now that's been about a month since I've done that. Thoughts of her, the sad thoughts about her passing do not come to me as often.
Well,
that's right. Not the thoughts of her don't come, but those thoughts that you're talking about, right? That stuff, it's not coming as often.
Well, that's amazing commentary, because so this Victorian, the notion that you were talking about, really set aside time to deal with the loss of someone is incredibly valuable. And you're right. I don't think we're not really taught how to deal with the loss of somebody. We don't mourn properly, or at least, I did the same thing. I kind of just kept going. And I feel like I haven't dealt with it 100%, so I get it.
And I think our world tells us that, right? I mean, our society right now tells us that we are, that's the way to work through these things. Now, you don't have to stop your life, but by the same token, constant distraction really does take away from that. Yeah. And for me, I mean, I've never been a successful meditator. I've tried.
It's very tricky.
Very tricky for someone with a brain like mine. But the walking meditation, which is something I actually did at a particular retreat I was at one time, is absolutely amazing for me. And you and I have talked about this in the past, that I walk for exercise, but I also walk for my mental health, right? It's physical health, it's mental health, it's being outside. So that amount of, I don't know if we want to call it distraction, movement, whatever it is for me the perfect amount of, mental freedom to deal with things, emotional freedom, but I'm not trying to sit still, and I'm not trying to, solely focus. So it's something I think if people are having issues with meditation, but they understand the benefit, a walking meditation is a perfectly valid way to try to do that.
And I think that's brilliant, because I also get a lot from exercise, and we're both pretty busy, active people. We're not good at kind of sitting still.
Yeah.
So I think that is, I've never really thought about it in that way, and I love this because I also love to walk, and I find that when I do walk on my own, now I do walk with music, but it really just, the exercise and the clarity and the fresh air really does a lot for me.
It does.
So I love this about what you've done here.
Right. So to take this out, and also just to realize that this can be done anywhere, right? I mean, this was something that adopted to the time and the space and the resources I had, which I'm not saying weren't big. I mean, I had a beautiful trail. My cottage is close to where I walk, so that is where I could go back to every night. So the cost of doing this also wasn't great. So it's adapting it to that. It's figuring it out, and it's saying, you don't have to spend the $15,000 to fly to France, do all the auberge stuff, figure it out. You don't have to do all that to get the benefit of setting aside a time to address some spiritual matters on your feet, walking, with a goal in mind. I mean, I think where you're going to does matter in a sense. It probably should have some meaning, but it doesn't have to be a religious meaning. You could walk to somewhere you had happy childhood memories. You could walk to, a city you love. It doesn't have to be that, but yeah. So I think it was a wonderful experience. I can post the videos I did. They're what they are, and they're much more practical, but it gives you a sense of how you would do it.
Oh, I love it. And I'm really happy that you did this. I'm really, really happy that I didn't talk to you about it until today.
No,
because I really wanted to react and share with everybody your experience. And I just want to say I love you.
Thank you.
And this was amazing that you shared this with everybody. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And we've got some amazing ideas coming up, some wonderful things that we want to share with you. And they're going to be coming to you soon. So stay tuned for more Women with Good Chat. Bye.
Take care.